All right, for all you freaking out thinking that TikTok's just going to get banned and disappear, as a lawyer who's clerked for a federal judge, that is, judges that make decisions about constitutional issues, I want to walk you through this and explain to you the government has more of an uphill battle than TikTok does. Let's just assume the law gets signed into by the Senate and signed by the president. At that point, TikTok will file a lawsuit in federal court alleging constitutional violations and alleging that the law violates the Constitution, particularly the First Amendment right to free speech. And in free speech cases, anytime there's a law that's passed that restricts free speech or prohibits free speech or is a prior restraint on free speech, the government, the one who sets forth the law or passed the law, in this case Congress, they have to come forward with what we call a substantial governmental interest. And what that means is a real, not conjecture, the case law says, real interest in why the speech needs to be restricted. Now, Congress has obviously teed this whole thing up as a national security issue, right? So they're going to argue that there's a national security issue with the Chinese government spying on the Americans. The problem with that argument is that to pass constitutional scrutiny, for the law to survive a challenge under the Constitution, the government has to come forward with real evidence, facts, show me the money type stuff to show that there really is this threat, that there is this danger with the Chinese government spying on Americans and harming us. So far, I've seen no actual evidence of that. I've just heard politicians talking about it. Now, Congress is also going to argue, the government's going to argue that it's not actually a ban because we're not shutting down TikTok. We're giving TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, the chance to sell. That's basically Congress's attempt to avoid it being a ban, because if it were actually a ban, it would have less of a chance to pass constitutional scrutiny. But I think the courts are still likely to view it as essentially a ban, and if not a restriction on free speech under the First Amendment, it probably implicates other provisions of the Constitution, the right to economic liberty and freedom. But again, the government will then argue that the Chinese company is from China, so they don't enjoy those rights under the Constitution. Those are sort of like the issues of how it will play out. But traditionally, courts, federal courts in particular, looked very, very suspect upon laws that restrict free speech. And the last thing I'll say is President Biden has said he will sign this law while simultaneously he uses TikTok to advertise to get reelected.